Hey, you want to witness some history? Okay, back in the day, George and a few of our founding fathers had hemp farms. Yeah, a president grew his own. Look it up. It was normal. But you know what isn't normal? America's 80 years of unjust prohibition, which hasn't made us any safer. And then there's this. They came up with policies like stop and frisk, where anyone can get searched at any... All right, I'm getting a little off track, but the point is, these punishments have been harsh.
That's from a short called The New Normal. That voice is a good friend of ours. Someone I know on a personal level that I've gotten to meet a couple of times in a social environment. And sometimes either you meet people by the big screen or the little screen, or you meet them at events. You get a hunch that, man, this seemed like a really cool person, like great vibe. And then you meet them in person, and it could pivot the wrong direction. In the case of this young man, he exceeded my expectations, in every aspect. In fact, I think I was whack around him,
No.
You groupied out?
Definitely not.
I did kind of groupie out because I respect him so much and what he's done with his career and with his voice and with his platforms. But DB, run down the line, a litany of things this man has accomplished.
I mean, the guy has a title, everything you can think of: actor, executive producer, director, model, spokesperson, activist, humanitarian. I mean, the guy's a great actor, because I was just watching Cabin in the Woods the other day, which is one of my favorite horror films in recent years. You and Chris Hemsworth, you almost made it to the end, man. I was, you know what I mean? I love that film. But Sisterhood of Traveling Pants, I mean, the Brooklyn's Finest with that amazing cast, The Butler, and of course Grey's Anatomy, which is on. Please welcome Jesse Williams.
Appreciate it.
Jesse. How you been good, man?
I've been great, yo.
Okay, man.
I've been great.
I haven't gotten any dinner invites lately.
He used to be very proud of those invites.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You in L.A., man. He throw the great best, like, if you don't mind. He does the best. It's dinner. Mm-hmm. But these social gatherings I had a chance to be a part of, just almost like a fly on the wall. Just some really exceptional people all at one table.
Dope.
Just having uncensored conversation. It might be anything from health and wellness to politics to, I met people who still to this day email me about potential investments that if I want to come on board and be a part of, I just ain't got my money up to the tune that they be talking sometimes, but I'll get there soon. But some really great people surrounds him. It's like you're a beacon of light. I never got a chance to tell you, man, I always appreciate sitting down, breaking bread, because people don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think we're circling back around to, like, in general with entertainment, live experiences. Everything is always canned and on your phone, but now, like, there's nothing like being in front of people and, like, putting the damn phone down and actually making eye contact.
Facts.
And actually being present with people. And I try to surround myself with people smarter than me and more interesting, and we got to be lifting up. That's the whole point of life. Like, I've never been interested in being the big fish in the small pond, just to walk around, like,
dumping your chest.
Dick swinging, like, okay, cool, great, but the world is big. Let's get bigger. Like, what are we doing? What are we making?
Absolutely. Good.
Well, speaking of lifting up and getting bigger, when you came here, you was trying to fix the microphone before we got on air, and I was telling you, Dr. Ruth was sitting there.
Yeah.
So her mic was really short.
Yeah.
And I started telling you all of this stuff because you was like, she's still talking about sex, and she told Sway that men should have sex in the morning.
Right.
And not at night.
No, she said older men.
Older men. Well, I didn't want to say that.
But see, I wonder what she mean by older men, like 40 plus.
Apparently, had the big thing she's talking about.
No.
I'm getting the geriatric sex advice already. I mean,
anybody over 25.
Okay.
Wow. What?
Damn.
Tracy, go with it. Like, just go with it.
Just made up a number.
Go with it. So
I'll take that. Morning works for me.
Morning works better.
Okay. I mean, what's
I'm
better
asking.
for me? I mean, you could have named any time of day and I would have been with you. Like, they would have said after Thanksgiving dinner, yeah, cool.
She said, I want to share, Jess. She said, wake up in the morning, go pee.
Yep.
Right? Go have a bite of breakfast and then get back in the bed.
This is what I've been saying to women for a very long time.
For years. Just let me go pee.
Go pee.
Let me get some fuel.
Hold that thought. I'll bring back some oatmeal.
Okay.
My question now to y'all men: what does the peeing do? I couldn't ask her because I felt like what is the
You
peeing?
gotta pee when you wake up.
You got to clean the pipe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get
women
rid
are
of-
supposed to pee before you have sex too.
and after. I
Yeah,
think.
and after.
Yeah, cleanse
You
it.
gotta prevent
What if you
that
don't have to?
UTI and all that.
You still,
They say you're supposed to force
yourself to
Drink
pee.
some water.
Yeah, if you got stuff,
Going.
coming in and
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
All
keep
right.
it.
Like I drink cups of. I try to drink 20 ounces of water whenever I wake up in the morning.
First thing.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah, it's supposed
First
to be
thing.
like one of the best things you could do for yourself is drink a bunch of water first.
High alkaline too.
Alkaline, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
got-
Trader Joe's got some.
I got the
And
filter at my
Essentia.
house though.
There you go.
Jesse, let me ask you this, man. Our forefathers, George Washington, had hemp farms.
George Washington had a lot. George Washington owned African people and traded and sold them also. So we opened this piece with me portraying George Washington for a number of reasons. First of all, directed by the brilliant Spike Jonze, incredible person and talent, and Mechanism, the great agency that kind of put it all together, some of the concept. So incredible partners on this. But George is an interesting character for me, I think, just the schizophrenia of American deification of white men, right? Like people that are both heroes but villains, and a villain to who? What's heaven to you might be hell for me. The good old days were actually living hell on earth for us, but they're the good old days for y'all. George, Africans used to be forced to grow marijuana.
Yeah.
Now we are filling prisons for having marijuana in our apartment. And George was if you're a slave owner, you are inherently a human trafficker, a sex trafficker, a kidnapper, inherently violent enterprise being run out of your living room. But also probably a great mind and military mind and founding father of a country with one of the most impressive democracies in the history of the world. So all those things can coexist, but if you're lying to me about half of them,
Yeah.
or worse yet, telling me that the half that involved destroying you and anybody like you was worth it, so worth it, you're so invaluable that I'm not even going to mention it, and if you dare mention it, then you're the problem.
You're the problem.
Then that's a different story. So I think for this, what attracted me to this project, I'm gonna be real, is this is a social activist. This is a social justice issue for me. Legalization, criminalization, the selective criminalization of weed is a social justice issue for me. I can't trust the judicial system or white America to adjudicate fairly our laws. I know that in the suburbs, all y'all kids smoke weed. We know that every American film that's ever happened about coming of age, partying, Superbad, Risky Business, Project X, whatever the coming of age movie is, it's about white kids smoking weed and drinking, both of which are illegal. Both of which are the reasons that everybody in this room would be locked up. We all go to fucking jail for having weed on us. That's what stop and frisk. You're trying to catch us out there for having weed on us. But all the movies that are American to their core are about white kids smoking weed.
Yeah.
That is the joke. Like, it's so laughable and fun for y'all because it's mischief. But we're pathologically criminal for doing the same, for emulating that behavior, for doing the same thing. So this project to me was about, like, we know that cannabis is going to be the topic.
Yeah.
We know that it's the boom. It's coming to New York. It's coming in California. It's already everywhere. Every billboard in LA is about weed and dispensaries and delivery services and CBD, and have it involved in your yoga practice and for your pets and for your knuckles and for your pain and for your trauma, whatever, right? So we know this is going to be the next big kind of boom, post-internet boom or something, right? So let's make something that just establishes, time out for a second. We're just going to establish the foundation. When y'all talk about weed, understand that it means this.
Yeah.
It started here. We spend our whole life in the judicial system based off this shit. We live in cages after living in cages off this shit. And then, and this is what enforces, like, this is what dumps a ton of funding into policing, which is overseers in our communities around this shit, which is, I'm from Chicago, 80s crack era. I've seen a lot of crazy violent shit. And then I've also lived in the white suburbs and went to a very affluent high school. Those kids, that's where I learned about drugs. That's where I learned about Kime Bud and everybody selling weed and getting caught with weed. And it's not a problem for a whole more than half of this country. We know, when Trayvon got killed, and they
Yeah.
try to demonize him because he might have had weed in his system, and somehow he invented the hooded sweatshirt.
Yeah.
He invented this device where you could cloak yourself, which is like, it's bullshit. Obviously, what's the white boy uniform? Everybody wears a hooded sweatshirt. But like the people who are criticizing Trayvon for maybe having something in the system, all your kids are smoking weed in their finished basements right now,
Yeah.
and you know it. And we laugh about it, and it's mischief, and it's boys will be boys, and it's kids will be kids. So America's got to make up its fucking mind. Like, if we're trying to follow y'all laws, these are your rules.
Yeah.
We didn't make the rules. We're just, but do they apply or do they not apply? If this dude just killed 7 people, and he doesn't have a scratch on him, but Luca, this young 15-year-old kid, gets the shit beat out of him for picking up a cell phone, what are the laws again? Because you told us we got to follow the law. If we get off, you're still going to talk about it. I mean, we can go on forever.
And we can.
But this project with Spike is really about just establishing. We see where this is going, and we see y'all can continue to demonize us for involvement with a healing herb. So let's just establish some context so we can operationally define the terms that we're using.
What do we do with those who are currently behind bars for distributing or selling small amounts of weed?
Let them out. We're working on expungement clinics, people who are already out getting their record expunged. The also beautiful, evil part of this is that anybody who, which is going to be primarily us, who's been charged with crimes around weed, you can't get involved in the weed business. You can't get none of this money. You're banned.
Yeah.
If you have cannabis charges in a lot of states and also federally. You can't get involved in the boom.
Wow.
Internet is taking off. Nah, buddy, you can't play because you did internet too early. You started a website too early. You were an entrepreneur selling weed too early, and you're not white with a beard in Colorado. They can do it and make millions. This whole industry is just around moving the money from weed dispensaries. Like not even actually selling weed. Like it's a multi-layered enterprise. So anyway, it's I think California has done a good job of this. I think Washington State let motherfuckers out. I can curse on this show, right?
No, you just did. That's all right, man.
Fuck it.
Let people out on petty charges that are no longer crimes anymore. We've let all American heroes off the hook for slavery and misogyny because they were men of their time, because it was of the day. So let's let all these brothers and sisters out of prison for having a dime bag.
Yeah.
What are we even talking about right now? We have people who bilk people for millions of dollars during the housing crisis or something. It's not about how much the value. If I go steal a bottle of liquor from a bodega, I'm going to get more time than if I rip you off from your mortgage and make you homeless. Like, so it's not about dollar value. It's about what? If I was wearing a tie while I was doing it? If I'm straight and white when I was doing it? Like, what is it about?
When does it apply?
Right.
Jesse Williams is here. We were just talking about subpoenas this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Who has the right to not answer to a subpoena and who is forced to answer to a subpoena? Like, do our subpoenas, is it against the law? You got a choice whether or not you want to answer to a subpoena or not. We're seeing that right now in our politics, and similarly, we're seeing that in these drug laws.
Yeah. Choice is something that we haven't had the privilege of.
Yeah.
We're seeing that a lot in this Trump era too, right? Like, I thought y'all had to do that. Oh, you don't?
Yeah.
You don't have to disclose that? You can just not give me your taxes? I thought every presidential candidate had to submit.
But does that mean I don't have to show my taxes too?
No, Negro.
Yeah, I have to show my taxes, Jesse?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Black.
But my president didn't show his.
He's not black.
He's not human. Mike Muse.
Yes. Well, one, thank you for being here.
Good to see Mike. What up, Mike?
Good seeing you again.
I know y'all know each other.
Yeah.
That's
great.
Yeah. Good to see you again, my brother.
Yeah,
I love the work that you're doing. I love
you,
how
man.
you're just unafraid to be who you are and to promote and advocate for these issues. I'm a big fan of this discussion of legalization of marijuana and decriminalizing it and declassifying it from a narcotics kind of perspective. You've already talked a little bit about those of us who've already been punished for weed, those of us being black, are unable to acquire a license. But I'm curious, are you having the conversation too as well in terms of the economic barriers to actually having a license? Because that's a thing, even for within the states that you can legally get it, there is a barrier that's been put in place, a number of licenses of individuals who are allowed to even receive a dispensary because of the economic barrier of how much it costs to do it.
Exactly.
And so I'm just curious in your conversations and making this project, has that come up in some of the things?
I'm still learning about that because I didn't really realize how deep it goes. There are very few licenses, very few licenses, in state issued licenses, and you gotta have a ton of dough up front, just like anything else. Like we understand, we learn about like real estate's where you should put your money. That's a safe bet. You really cool. How am I gonna get 60 large to put as a down payment? Like it's a cool story. It sounds like it's freedom. Everybody can buy a house, but if I'm disenfranchised generationally, and I've been redlined, I can't afford to do that and live. So the same principles apply. So if it looks like anybody can get a license, except anybody can't get a license.
Exactly.
So I'm still never, I'll be honest. Like I came to this project because of how it applied to the freedom and equity around Black communities. And so this topic could have been anything. It's happened to be weed and legalization, something that I cared about. So in that process of opening that door, I'm now opening all the doors within and learning about it. So it's a journey for me as well. But licenses is incredibly prohibitive, it sounds like.
But I think it's good that people like you are doing this creative content in order to do that, because the marijuana industry and the ecosystem of marijuana is so vast and it's so layered. We want to look at it from the criminalization point of view, not really realizing the whole industry and economics and those who are making money and becoming rich off of it is a whole other system. And not even looking at the bills that's happening in Congress now in terms of the banking bills about to be passed, in terms of allowing for cash deposits to be placed, and then who's that affecting and who's that impacting. And then the whole state-by-state laws that's in place right now versus federal. And so there's a whole industry, but I feel like we're being distracted, we being Blacks, over this legalization of it, not really realizing at the same time it's smoke and mirrors about how much people are making money off of it too.
It's a financial literacy conversation, and it is also, look, the starter pistol already went off. It is a race. So it's about who is, that manifest destiny. People, pioneers going west and claiming land. Like, there's only a finite amount of land. There's only be a finite amount of dispensaries, real estate. If there's already 2 on your block, you're not opening one. So if we're not part of that first and second wave, the market's going to be played out, and we're going to have to wait for something else to be laid on. So it's about just by having conversations in a space you wouldn't expect it to do, which, and originally this was intended to be the first legalized marijuana commercial on television. It's supposed to be in your living rooms, but cable companies were too scared to do it. And I don't know that I'm even supposed to be talking about this, so maybe I shouldn't, but people are scared to be the first in anything.
They are.
And we know that this is part of our living room conversations. So if we can involve it in the creative space as well as the political space, you don't have to be listening to this show or listening to Mike or watching CNN if it's part of just a commercial. If you were actually just watching a Sway interview and this was the commercial that came on after, now it's a little more unavoidable. It's also less scary. And I'm more likely to, it's just an entry point. It's a little bit of crumbs that maybe I'll go and explore and look at, how could I open a dispensary in the Bronx? Is that possible? Has anybody done that before? How much money do you need down? Do I need to own a brick and mortar, or can I lease it? Can I do it online? Can't do it online yet. Can I do it? Just get me creatively thinking, and that lays the groundwork. Things need to be attainable goals. People only pursue attainable goals. Like anybody trying to do something they've never seen anybody looks like them do. So just by having it infused into the conversation, I think it's important.
I started buying stock around cannabis companies.
Really?
And they've been turning around fairly quickly. I could give you some insight. But when I saw the former Speaker of the House, John Boehner, invest in a cannabis company, it's when and this was years ago, it's when I said, oh, shit. Let me see what that looks like. We have Bob from Cincinnati on the line. Bob, good morning. You want to talk on this?
Bob?
Hey, Bob.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Good morning, Sway.
Peace,
Bob. Good morning, everybody. Man, I've been in this game for a long time, man. I got 3 felonies for growing it when I was a kid, and then got in the stock game in 2015 and made a lot of money legally on it. So, I got a lot of perspective on it. But,
wow.
This shit's fucked up, man. You got, all white people taking over an industry that's just hurt Black people their whole lives, man. And even the Black people in my community that I've reached out to that got money, they tell me the same thing y'all were talking about. They're worried about being the first in their community to enter it because they got real big shit going on and they don't want to risk what they got going on. So for instance, there's a dude, Ed, here in Cincinnati, and he's in Chicago, real baller black dude. He just started what's called a special access fund, so you can spend it on whatever. They raised $300 million. I said, Ed, man, you guys got to get into cannabis. Like, black people need some representation. He said, Bob, man, we couldn't if we wanted to, because the people that gave us this money got stipulations on it to say we can't get into alcohol, we can't get into tobacco, we can't get into weed or any of that. So, like, it's just fucked up, man. Right when black people are coming up, getting money, they can't participate in this industry for whatever reason, But
yeah, it
my
sounds
advice,
like
Sway, would be like you're nailing the head, man, about the stocks. Like, nobody can take your stocks from you, right?
No.
So, like, get your stocks up, man. Every week, buy some of them. Research your companies. Go to MidwestCanada.com. Password, legalize it. Shameless plug right there, but whatever.
Do your thing, baby.
Why
you
not?
threw a password in there
You
too.
threw the password and
Got my
legalized it.
attention.
What's it called? What's it called again? What?
One word, MidwestCanada.com. Password, legalize it, all under case. Hey, look, I've been in so much trouble, man. Not trying to fuck with the SEC,
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man.
Appreciate it, Bob.
Yeah, it's true, man. I usually don't talk finances like that, but man, some of those stocks have turned over
Really
7
well.
times over.
Wow.
Come in at 7, this shit is at 44.
Yeah. That's where the game is.
That's where the game is.
That's where wealth is
Yeah.
generated. That's the shit that ain't popular. It ain't in the songs. It ain't in pop culture. It's certainly not used in an entertainment space. That's actually what undergirds real power. We can talk about I got this and I got that, and we flash. I mean, that is the big joke on youth culture and what has become black hip hop culture. It wasn't when we were coming up. It was the opposite, right? We were all about self-empowerment and our community and black economics and black businesses. And now that's frowned upon, and shit's got to be European for it to matter, foreign, right? Like, it's like, and nothing more anti-black than that.
Yeah.
But this paternalism, that's like, as Bob was saying, because they're black, there's these stipulations, like, but you can't have liquor or weed involved, while like blue blood, white collar, white folks can make all this money and understand the science and the mechanics behind these businesses. You can buy a car for 100, 200 G's, but what about like turning 100 G's into 600 G's?
And
in
washing
a
that money.
sweatshirt.
In a sweatshirt.
While you're on vacation. Like that's real wealth generation. That's real financial literacy, and that is always going to be a power center, whether you like it or not. So we can talk about reform versus revolution, and the revolution ain't about you don't defeat predatory capitalism by becoming one, but it exists anyway.
Yeah.
So let's be able to kind of walk and chew gum at the same time here, and figure out ways to communicate those ideas.
You always say that, Mike. We could walk and chew gum at the same time, right?
We can.
Yeah.
And I think it goes to what Bob was saying and what Jesse, what you're promoting to as well. It kind of goes back to exposure, right? Like Bob is talking about hedge funds, and probably the fund that he's working with is coming from sovereign countries where there are certain rules and morality clauses that allow for investment to take place. But just the fact that we don't understand this business actually is happening, right? Because we don't see it. We don't even see it to what you were saying earlier in terms of real estate development. We don't have friends who are hedge fund managers. We don't have individuals in the private equity space, right? And so these are all the individuals who are like locking up this industry from a capitalism standpoint of view. And so it's time that we just start changing that narrative, right? And it really starts with projects like yours, Jesse, to really just begin to broaden the conversation out
and be
so
curious.
We can participate.
Like encouraging, like, there is, something my dad used to always say, like, if you don't know something, find out. And there is a posturing, particularly around men, where we act like we know shit, right? Sway says something about private equity. I'm like, word, yeah, that sounds dope. I don't know what the fuck private equity means. But I'm not humble enough to go, what's that mean? What's that word?
Yeah.
Just ask. It's okay. Ask. Or make a note. I used to always, like, when I used to hear words I didn't know what they mean, I would just write them down and then go home. I don't want to embarrass myself and ask it out loud. I got an ego. But I'll go home and I'll look it up. And now I know that word, and I'm trying to use it in a sentence to Mike next time we talk. Like, actually put it into practice. But, like, I'm trying to understand, how does this work? We talked about wanting to own a team. What do you really need to own a team? What do I, not just cash up front, but, why doesn't Oprah just buy it? Like, what does it require? What is her management fees? Are you in the red for 5 years?
Right.
Yeah.
What does in the red mean?
Yeah.
It's okay to ask. I'm an ask and ask
Yeah,
person.
and what does it stop you from doing? Like, because you like you said, $300 million, but you can't have this. You don't have access to
It's
this.
also like an
weird.
impressive point. If I'm talking, if we're having a conversation about something, and am I more impressed by, like, when you see people don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but they nod, especially dudes, like nod and act. Are you more likely to want to do business with me if I pretend I get things I don't, or if I am constantly trying to absorb new information? What gives you more confidence?
Right.
The person who wants to know things, or the one who
Absolutely.
cares more about their ego and looking cool?
Yeah.
Like, that's boring. That shit is played out. We're not 15 years old anymore. Like, you should be different at 30 than you were at 15.
Just
Well, let me get
Oh,
Tracy.
sorry,
Tracy been
sorry,
over there.
sorry, Stacey.
Tracy,
Sorry.
Sorry, Mike.
I didn't
Wait,
see my
hog the
peripheral.
mic.
Sorry.
No
Tracy.
worries at all. Jesse, I have such thorough respect for you as a creative, as an activist. Your
Thank
brain
you.
is like an endless hard drive.
Thank
So
you.
I just really appreciate you.
Show me how to turn it off.
I was doing a panel with a young lady. It was about deconditioning being a bitch. And she was speaking about how she's had so many layers to her identity she's had to discover because she's of mixed race. And growing up, her mother was married to 2 black men, and it was, I don't see race. And her mother always acted as if she was the same, but never really confronted her differences since she had a black child. And we had Tate Diggs on the show recently, and he has a son of mixed race. He said it was very important that his son didn't see himself solely as a black boy, that he also recognized his mother's culture. What would you say to those who are mixed and they feel like, do I have to choose? Should I learn about my white side as well? I feel like I read your mother is Swedish.
She's American, but she's Swedish.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a kind of a fascinating, while also being really uninspired, boring topic for me. Not what you're saying, but this, like, the unnecessary complication of, like, or I think sometimes self-imposed complication of being mixed or biracial. Like, it's not that deep. We live in America. This country, as racial politics are so poisonous and clear. If race doesn't exist, right? It actually doesn't exist scientifically, but it exists in real life. It fucking exists.
Yes.
It matters. And you're black. And if you don't find out you're black until you get called a nigga when you're 30 or 3, like, lived experience matters, right? Your personal experience matters, and I'm only a product of mine. I don't know. It feels almost like, I'm gonna sound insensitive, but it's a lot harder to be fucking black. Like, you know how easy it is to be biracial and mixed? Like, colorism is so real. Like, people complaining about things that, like, it's like being a man complaining about how hard it is being a man. And I shouldn't say this. This is out of context. But I've lived with it for a long time, and I've lived in multiple different planets in this universe in terms of race, and I just think we should prioritize and have some, like, context and perspective on what are factors and what aren't, and what it's hard to. It is very confusing in a world that is so black and white, literally and figuratively, if you are in the middle.
Right.
Sure, that is confusing. I imagine it's probably a lot more confusing to be dark skinned and to be told that you're trash, but also we worship you and want to be like you, but we hate you. Like, there's a lot. It's harder to be a woman than it is to be a man. So, and there's a lot of privileges I've gotten so much in my life because I'm light, because I have light eyes, because it's way easier. Period. So I don't really think it's a useful use of my time to talk about hardships or confusing elements of it. I think we just have to be sensitive about it. Like, just because there's a dark skinned girl's doc doesn't mean you need to make a light skinned one. Like, it doesn't, like have some taste.
Yeah.
I think. Now, I was raised in it. My family's very white and very black. and they were able to coexist in a way that's clear. Just because my dad is making me do a history report on the African burial ground and raised me, anything I've said of any value around race is me just repeating things that my dad has indoctrinated me with. I was raised on Malcolm X mixtapes and Public Enemy and Poor Righteous Teachers and like
X-Clan.
like X-Clan, like real, like that's the only hip hop I was allowed to play in the house.
Wow.
KRS, like, and but I also grew up sailing in the summer and camping and like doing really, really white New England shit. And they're not in battle with each other. That wasn't confusing. These are just multiple ways to live. And then I realized, there's not, and that's a blessing because it lets me know, there's not just one way to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's also like, just because I listen to the Beatles and Bob Dylan doesn't make me less black. Who do you think they're copying when they made that music? Who do you like? It's okay and more interesting to be have as many tools in your toolbox as possible. I just get a little disinterested in like the tragic mulatto story. Because like that's not the hard part. Yeah. And maybe I'm an asshole. But like it just doesn't.
Title, Sway.
That doesn't.
Tragic mulatto.
Well, that's a real. There's 5 categories. Paul Bogle wrote a book called Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks. There's like the 5 or 6, whatever number that was, the names I just said, of roles that black people have played throughout the history of cinema. Right, you're either a Tom, a Coon, a Mammy, a mulatto, or a buck. And these are tropes that we've adapted. And yes, if you're I'm not a girl, but I've heard a lot, like, if you're a light-skinned girl, like, maybe the black girls don't fuck with you, or they think that you think you're better than,
Right.
Okay, but the world also thinks you're better than and treats you better. So, like, what's the math we're doing right now? Like, it's not a net loss. But you need to overcome. You need to figure out a way to be sensitive to that. I know that, like, I've got treated a certain way and get attention from girls because of the way I look, which I did not choose. I did not win a lottery shooting craps in the womb and like
Let me get them eyes.
Let me get them eyes. Let me get these freckles. Let me get this color skin. Like, I didn't earn that. That's got nothing to do with me. But I know that I'm gonna have a better deal, so I can be more sensitive to that fact. I'm not gonna whine about how dark-skinned people treat me worse. Like, that's just a weird way to expend my energy. And who's that for?
Right.
Like, I'm more interested in black liberation than like light-skinned storytelling. I
love it.
That's my experience. Other people have had completely different experiences.
Yeah.
I feel I'm aware that it's gonna come off kind of crass and insensitive, but I just want to. I don't like to dive down that. That's not a portal. I've got 5 other focuses.
Yeah.
And like light-skinned struggle ain't it.
That ain't
for
it.
me.
The tragic mulatto. And no, that ain't. That's honesty, man. That's all we ask.
And it's
man.
a lot of privilege because I had fucking incredible parents and incredible like layered family that allowed me to be everything but held me to a standard. Like, if I'm not working for the benefit of black people, my dad is not having it or impressed.
Wow.
Like, the collective body is always more important than the individual. I don't give a fuck about your individual accomplishments. What are you doing for black people?
Wow.
Like, it's always, and I didn't raise myself that way. Somebody raised me that way. That's a privilege. All this comes from being real lucky. But I can't unremember that.
Jesse Williams, ladies and gentlemen. Grey's Anatomy too. Don't forget.
Yo.